There we go.
Hey, let's go. What's up, Nana? Dang, it's so good to
What? It's good to see you too, man. How you been?
pretty good. How you
I'm here. I made the decision to go to grad school, so we're seeing how that turns out.
been? So wait, so aren't you about to? Did you just graduate, or did you like about to graduate?
I just graduated technically like in May from undergrad, and then my first semester of grad school just finished. So
Nice. Let's go. That's so
yeah.
cool. Like even just seeing you right now is like kind of surreal because when we were talking before about the like when we did the first interview on your show, and shout out to you for winning Battle of the Bands, and shout out to you for doing the radio in general. But it's so wild because at that point we had no idea anything that would happen weeks to follow.
Yeah.
Like COVID was just like boom,
Exactly.
was everything.
Boom. Smack everybody in the face.
Dang, there's a little bit of an echo. I don't know if that's
On
me.
my end,
I think maybe, might maybe.
is it better now?
I think so. Oh, it's still a little bit.
Still, then that might be me. I don't know how I fix
It's all good.
that.
It's all good. But cool. But okay, so before we get started, thank you for doing this. Um, I guess this is just a brief interview, artist to artist conversation about like COVID, Black Lives Matter, just all the things that have been happening, and how you feel about those things. I'm curious as to what you think about those things too, because I know that over the summer it was really intense, and like we didn't talk about like Black Lives Matter or anything like that when we first did our interview. It was just kind of like music, and then that was it. But there's so much more to everything. So I guess we can get started with the obvious topic, which is COVID. Um, how are you feel about all of this?
it like it's so crazy because like this is America, right? And everybody's like, this is like where foreigners want to be. This is where people want to emigrate to and things like that. But you see other countries handling it so much better to the point where they're pretty much back to normal life. They can be in a crowded room. They can have concerts. Just having a mask on is irrelevant to them. Even having a vaccine for them, they don't need it. But us, Americans, I know my rights. Certain demographics don't want to, follow certain procedures. Don't want to wear their mask and things like that. So now it's like the the thing that scientists are saying that will work is like, okay, now we need a vaccine since people don't want to listen. Me personally, I don't want to take a vaccine just because of the history with Black people and things like that. So people should just wear their masks, save some lives, because the mask is not to protect you, it's to protect other people. So for you to not wear it, it is so selfish and so ignorant of you to not even believe in science and believe the fact that, like, even me talking right now, there are droplets, going. Even if I can't see them, I can't feel them. Things are going into the air, on surfaces, into just people's hands, everything. So we just need to be more careful. We need to wear our masks, wash our hands, use hand sanitizer. Just listen to science,
Exactly.
just listen to science, because this is hard for people. Like, people haven't seen family, people haven't seen friends. Like, children are being born in this pandemic and haven't met, any of their family, like grandparents haven't get to hold them or things like that. So it's very serious, and it's something that should be done with, honestly. But due to current administration and not wanting to follow any type of protocol and enforce the fact that science is very real and what these people are telling us needs to be listened to. So it's just really just a huge unfortunate situation because people are still like dying at like record numbers. So what do you think about it?
I agree with everything. And then I guess one of the big things I'm fascinated by is how we somehow found a way to disagree, even when this affects like it could affect like literally every human being ever. Like it's so fascinating to me to think about. First of all, there's different okay, I guess I'll just try to like articulate like the different spectrums of what I'm thinking of. First, there's
Yeah,
the
take your
thing with
time.
like breaking down how this affects people, and then breaking down how it affects the people within that. Like, some people view this pandemic as a really opportune time to learn and grow, and then other people are really set back by it. Like, a lot of minorities were already disadvantaged, so now they're being even more disadvantaged. And I was watching an interview with, I think, Janelle Monáe and a few other actresses, and she was just saying how, look, y'all, we gotta, and even in the comments, they were saying, yo, Janelle Monáe came with it. Everybody, all the other actresses were kind of like, yeah, I've been, using this time to sort of, it's been a blessing in disguise. And it was like, oh, shoot, but wait a minute, Janelle Monáe came with it. But wait, it's like minorities. I think she said like America sneezes and minorities get pneumonia or something like that. It's like
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, certain people are more affected by it just because of the contextual forces that are at work. And so with all of this, just trying to break it all down, like you said, just people wearing masks, some minorities just trying to get by, and then some people viewing it in a different way. There's so many different ways to look at it that I think we're seeing just the statistical variation of how people are affected by this. Like, the odds of people being affected differently are high. Like, I was even thinking about this last night. Like, there's a duality to COVID right now. Somehow in the political sphere, COVID became this dual thing where in politics it's so common that you find the thing to disagree about. Two is the minimal needed to clash. And it's so fascinating that a global pandemic that affected everybody, people still found a way to find some way to disagree. Like you said, wear a mask. Well, some people are like, personal freedoms. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't want to wear a mask. And then
Right.
exactly, so other people are like, wait a minute, you have to wear a mask to keep yourself safe. And there's so like the different perspectives and how they clash. It's so fascinating that in every instance and pretty much anything across human history, there's going to be some level of duality and some level
Yeah.
of disagreement. So I think we're seeing more people sort of diffuse into the vein of like, I disagree with COVID. I don't think it's real because I'm not personally affected. And then on the other side, people are still holding strong, like how we were locked down before. It's like, no, we're still locked down. This stuff still needs to be taken care of. And so people are starting to diffuse to that non-belief side because of the sheer odds of two contextual forces disagreeing with each other. And I don't know, it's just all very fascinating how people look at literally something that every single person alive in different ways.
Yes. They're like, oh, it's not real. It's not real. But like literal bodies are piling up, and you still want to say it's not real just because you haven't been personally affected. And there are countless of interviews on like CNN and any other news station of the healthcare workers, and they are on there, and they're all burnt out. They're all essentially traumatized by what's happening because they see multiple people die every day. They see this disease affect so many people so differently, and they see how it affects, from babies to the elderly. And the crazy thing is that it really does affect everybody differently. Some people it'll like affect your lungs. Some people it'll shut down like your kidneys and your liver and things like that. And like I just think like this disease is really crazy because you can also be asymptomatic, or you can just have a cold, or not smell or not taste or anything. So I think that's the scariest part. Like if you were to test positive or something, how exactly is it going to affect you? Because it can go from like 0 to 100 literally like overnight within 2 seconds. So it's just something that really needs to be taken seriously.
Oh yeah, it literally is like somebody wrote a movie like detailed this virus in such a way that it would keep spreading and like keep the plot going. It's so weird. Like, it's like, oh, you can spread it, but at first people weren't wearing masks. It was like, do we need to wear masks? No, we don't. And then that enabled people to spread it more because the CDC didn't have enough information yet. So it spread from China to everywhere else. And then people were like, well, just stay inside. And then it was like, well, you could be asymptomatic and you can spread it without knowing. So even staying inside might not be beneficial because you might have spread it already and you didn't know. It's like some World War Z type stuff. I don't want to say that. I don't want like some like zombie virus type stuff. And it's just wild because at every single turn, at every corner, we hit another obstacle that makes us have to work around it. And I just don't know when we'll ever get to a point where there are more obstacles. And even in the future, it's wild to think that this could happen again, which is really scary. But I think that we have a certain, I think that every human has a certain tenacity and a certain baseline level of love for each other, even if we don't always acknowledge that propels us through situations like this, which is how I think our civilization has gotten to this point. Because in all honesty, the Black Plague, stuff like that, if I'm being like super pessimistic, should have wiped pretty much everybody out. Like certain events, like how do we not have a dinosaur level extinction event yet? You know, like there's something in our favor in the universe, and there's also something in our favor in terms of us as beings. And I think that we'll get through this at something. I don't know when or how, but I at least have faith.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to go to Dreamville. Like, I just want everybody to get it together so that we can, just get back to normal life and not have to worry about, just a whole bunch of people dying every day. But like you said, there is a baseline level of just everybody caring for each other, and that amount of people definitely outnumbers the number of selfish people. So that's that is definitely working in our favor for sure.
Okay, cool. To move on to that kind of takes us into the next thing, kind of, which I wanted to talk about elections. I didn't want to necessarily. We don't have to go too deep into the politics of it because that's never.
I'll be over here scratching.
But I guess we could talk about more so just the system of elections. What I'm really trying to get at is there's a lot of unprecedented, or at least uncommon things that are happening in politics right now. And I just kind of wanted to get your take on the sort of this current administration not wanting to leave. I'm not trying to impinge on anybody's beliefs because I know at some point somebody might watch this and be like, "Oh, I'm clicking off. They're talking about." But I'm just thinking about like I've never seen this before. I was just wondering what you thought about the refusal to concede. Now Biden has essentially won and essentially accept that. I was just wondering what your take on that was, and sort of the system of elections that allows that sort of thing in general.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, why is it that one man is essentially given so much power and like such a platform to even be like, no, I'm not leaving the White House. No, well, America voted. I don't care. Recount the votes because I'm going to do something to let it be in my favor. I think that's so ridiculous. Like, the transition was very smooth for you. So just make it smooth for the next person who's coming in. And you say you want to make America great again, right? So just do it. The people have voted. The people have spoken. Do it for them. Like, plain and simple. And it's really crazy that he also gets to pardon people for criminal activity, like blatant criminal activity. And he gets to pardon his friends from any sort of consequence or repercussion or anything. What? He has evaded so many laws, just so many just basic moral code. It's just he's not gonna suffer any consequences for it. And I think aside from the fact that maybe I don't like him, whatever. No, it's just the baseline of right and wrong. Just baseline right and wrong, dude. Just be a good person. Just this one time, just let everything transition smoothly, because at the end of the day, if don't be a sore loser about it, then hey, maybe you'll have more of a political future. Hopefully not, but it's really all crazy to me. And like, I'm not like huge on politics, but seeing what can happen when somebody of that stature has so much influence on people, and the activities and the attitudes and the mindset that he encourages is just really unacceptable for such a melting pot of a country, for a country that has so much of like a tarnished history when it comes to people of color, or anybody of color. It's just really sad to see that there are people in this world who have so much hate in their heart for no reason, and it's like the most powerful person in the world encourages all that. Several things happening day to day, and nothing's being said about it. Nothing. He never says that, hey, y'all, this is really bad. Like, this is bad. He'll just point the finger at somebody else. And what is so funny to me is that I think during the debate or something, when he was speaking, he was like, I'm the least racist person in this room.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what? And then, okay, to play the devil's advocate, or like bring up some sort of conspiracy. Oh, like in the 90s or something, he had an interview and he was like, if he would have ever run for office, he would run for the Republican Party because they are dumb. So I'm just like, are you doing all this just for like, the ultimate level of fame? Or like, are these really, is what you're doing really in line with your core values? And it's like, it has to be both, right? Because you would like to think, oh, dude, this is a ruse. He's a jokester. Like, none of this, he doesn't believe any of it. But there's a certain point where you're like, this is actually him. Like, he is really this type of person. He really encourages all that. And I'm just like, what do you do with that? And we've gone through it for 4 years. And I was so scared that he was going to win again. I was terrified. Because another 4 years of that administration, like, I can't even imagine what would have happened.
It's interesting that too, because I was even thinking about, there's a lot to go through, but I was even thinking about just previous transitions of power and like the importance of concession, like the importance of passing the torch. I used to think that it was automatic, but now I'm sort of seeing that it really isn't. And the repercussions of that sort of transcend the office. But it's interesting because, like you said, it's like Trump is like, is he running because it's the ultimate level of fame or because it's aligning with his core values? I was even thinking about this sort of situation where a lot of wealthy families were bribing their way into college. And I was watching a video and it was like, these wealthy children don't even benefit as much as a poorer child from an underserved community when they go to larger universities. It's literally like pretty much pointless because they already have money, they already have connections to resources. So this just took me back to that because I was watching something saying that these kids are basically just going to colleges because it's a status symbol. And that made me wonder the whole time. I was trying to articulate why I felt that something felt a little bit off when Trump was initially deciding to run. I'm not talking about him as a candidate specifically, but something did feel a little off. I think anytime that a celebrity runs, and some people might have felt the same way with Ronald Reagan at some point, but it's like, are you doing this? Is something political becoming conflated with fame? And like politics and fame, they kind of clash sometimes. Sometimes they come together in a good way because people get the right recognition. But other times, ego can creep in, and then all of a sudden, it conflates politics and fame in a very dangerous way. And so it makes me wonder if Trump was ultimately running for president just for the status symbol. And I don't want to denigrate mistakes or anything like that, but it at least makes me curious. I think we have to ask questions as Americans in terms of like why people do certain things. But
Yeah.
I think the really interesting part about the whole system of elections is that all of this is legal. Like you said, he's pardoning criminal activity, evading laws, and it's all loopholes that we haven't fixed in since 1776 when we founded the country. I mean, or at least
Right.
in like 1787, I think when the Constitution was created. So going on, I think we're just seeing more and more loopholes get created, and we have to keep layering on solutions. But then there's people that are feeding into the loopholes, and they don't want to create solutions. So it's it's almost ironic how we keep going in circles throughout history. And this is just the
Yeah.
latest episode, and I don't really know exactly what we do about solving it, but it does appear that loopholes will keep being created and we'll keep layering solutions. But that's why I'm thinking like the power really is in the hand of the people, because it all goes back to the fact that these are civil servants. Like the president is a servant of the people. So
Yeah.
if this many people are disagreeing with what the president is doing, obviously not that many people disagree. Because if everybody disagreed with what Trump was doing, then there would be riots all over the country. Everything would be going to crap right now. But
Mm-hmm.
I keep going back to that concept of duality, and like there needs to be a minimum of two forces to clash. A lot of times we as humans have problems going with or creating a third force, because as soon as we get two, we start butting heads.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Trump's whole thing with not conceding has been indirectly creating the forces that need to clash. And then we have problems focusing on anything else because we're butting heads with each other, but we don't understand the real repercussions of the fact that he's not conceding. And then I think we're going to see them down the road. Like you said, I mean, I don't know how that administration would have played out for another 4 years, but while we're over here butting heads, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that, because of the nuanced and niche nature of our clash as a society, the fact that we are over here butting heads while so much other stuff is going on is giving way to something happening. A lot of people are describing it as like a new world order, and I don't go that far to think that COVID is preparing us to be like uh like mindless sort of robots almost just following orders.
Yeah.
But it does make me wonder what the repercussions are going forward. But I do think that the not conceding is not good, because that's a key aspect of American democracy, is that when you lose, accept your defeat, move on. That's not happening. And I don't know what the repercussions will be immediately, but long term, I don't think they'll be good.
No, I don't think so either. We just we just gotta hope and pray,
Honestly.
because I like to say God's got us.
True. Oh, that's the next one. It's like, how do you find that you've been? Because I even heard What You Know, like your song What You Know is fire. So I mean, when I heard it, I was even like, okay, what you know about God? I was vibing, and I was like, how does she keep this level of faith? Because the song is not only has positive lyrics, but you even sound happy on it. Like you're like,
Yeah.
what you know, like it's like a swagger to it. So I'm just wondering how you keep that level of faith and involvement to be spreading the gospel for one, and then to be staying positive through a time like this.
I definitely first and foremost try to start the day listening to some gospel music just to kind of pep up my spirit, because even like we all go through periods where we question our faith, we just like maybe we don't pray as much, we don't listen to gospel music as much and things like that, or like contemporary Christian music, whichever genre, and I noticed that when periods in my life, when those periods come up where I do not pray as much or I don't listen to as much gospel or Christian music, I just kind of feel down. I feel heavy. And with all the heaviness around me, and it's like feeling that the world is just in a really tough spot, I just got to listen to more gospel, got to pray more. I just have to believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like the world and people will let you down. They have let us down, right? Looking at the pandemic and everything, they have let us down. So it just brings me peace believing in a higher power, in a more divine power. And it's like one thing that I always pray is that, God, let your will be done. And I don't know, are you a very religious person?
Yep.
Okay, so it is good to believe that, things will get better and God's got us and whatnot, but like biblically speaking, things aren't necessarily supposed to get better, right? And in those times, that's where your faith is really going to be tested, because it's like, okay, well, the world is handing you all this crap. Are you going to be strong in what you believe? Are you going to still keep the faith and be like, okay, well, they're still kind of looking up for me, and it's like, unfortunately, we kind of have to think that way with like, well, okay, well, things are still good for me. Things are still good for me. Things are still good for me. And, you even have to be thankful. Even like if you trip and you fall, be like, oh God, well, thank you for allowing me to fall. Now I learned from that, and, I'll look down a little more and things like that. I don't think I necessarily answered your question, but how do I stay positive? Just prayer, listen to gospel music, talk to my mom. She's a big part of it. If anything is happening, talk to my family, have open dialogues like this where, we talk about religion and things that are going on in the world, because it's really interesting to see other people's perspectives and then try to explain yours and then reach that middle ground of understanding. And then, of course, it's really hard to stay positive in a time like this, right? Because things are so different. And right now, it's just like with everything happening, where is that silver lining, right? When will things get better? And like I said earlier, unfortunately, I believe that, yes, things will probably inch to getting better, but at the end of the day, it's not supposed to. So I just am, I guess, comfortable with that. I've accepted the divine fate of the world, and I've accepted that God is going to allow whatever he needs to allow to happen in order for his plan to come into fruition, So you gotta stay positive by choice. You just gotta be like, this is happening to everybody. We all gotta sit in this funk for a little bit. Oh, and another thing, it's very important to feel. Go through your feelings, don't bottle it up. Feel what you need to feel. If you need to lock yourself in the room for like a day or two, listen to some sad music or something. But it's very important to feel and let yourself process all the emotions and all, like, the energies and whatnot that are being tossed around, essentially, and work through it. Because a lot of people feel like, oh, I have to be strong. People can't see if I'm down, or people can't see if I'm in a funk or anything. No, like, let people see that you're human. Everybody has the emotions. We're all going through this together. So if you are expressing that, oh, I'm feeling this sort of way, you'd be surprised how many other people are feeling the same way you're feeling. And the fact that y'all could come together, talk about the fact that everybody feels like crap, and then laugh about it, Did that answer the question?
That was perfect.
I feel like I was talking and talking. That was good.
That was perfect. I feel like you said really insightful stuff, even stuff that I'm gonna think about later, and it'll probably help me. Like, just your notion about the divine fate of the world. That's a really deep reason to believe in a greater future, because it takes a lot of awareness and a lot of faith to believe that. Because in the Bible, I think there's that concept about the 7 bad years and then the 7 good years, and then that sort of cycle, the cyclical nature of good and bad. And it takes a lot of faith to believe that you will continue to get through the cycles in a positive way, like overall, because you could go through the bad times and then that could stay with you like pretty much forever if you let it. So it's just interesting to talk about, or it's interesting to hear you talk about believing in that concept. Excuse me, believing in that concept because it really can be tough, especially in times like this. Because when you think about the future and you think about maybe like 30 years from now, you know you'll be a different person, but you also know that every day you'll wake up, you'll have that same conscience, given that God permits us to live long and prosper and be in our right minds and stuff like that. So we can think 30 years in the future, but at the same time, it's really tough to grasp the concept of the future. And I'm thinking about this more and more the older I get, because you will never know what events will shape you as a person. Nobody could have predicted that COVID would change us, but it's definitely changed all of us, even in really subtle ways that we probably won't completely realize until 30 years down the road. We'll understand that our psyche is different. The way we teach our children will be different because we'll be thinking about this time. And going back to having faith during this time, you have to have faith that this is that time that will craft you as an individual in the same way that during the 60s, the civil rights movement crafted people's lives going forward forever. And they didn't ask for that. That's the really depressing part about this. The thing that can really grab you and take you down is the injustice of it all. Nobody asked for this. Nobody wanted to be here. Nobody wanted to go through this. We just wanted to live our lives. Nobody asked for their parents to have them. Nobody asked to be born during this time. But the fact of the matter is, we just got to do our best to put it in layman's terms. And like you said, if you do the things consistently that will help you have good faith and have strong faith, then that'll increase your chances of getting through this in a positive way. You have to sort of have faith that each stepping stone. In the same way, I was watching this TED Talk one time, and it was like just thinking that stress is helpful can help blood go through your veins easier when you're stressed. And like, so we just have to have the mindset that, in a similar way, we come through this with a mindset based on faith. Even if you're not religious, having faith in something, even if that's the future, having faith that down the road, somewhere down the road, this will craft us in the same way that history has crafted our ancestors, and that crafting sort of propel us forward to craft others in a positive way and sort of manifest a more beautiful future over time.
For sure, that was really nice. That was a good explanation. That was good.
That's
Absolutely.
and then there's one other thing. I know I don't want to take up so much of your time, but I did want to talk about, because I haven't had a chance to really talk about this with anybody, but the Black Lives Matter protests that were happening, just everything going on with Black Lives Matter. I mean, just to give some context for my question, from Trayvon Martin to Michael Brown to now to George Floyd, and how do you feel about this sort of cyclical nature of brutality and injustice? How do you feel about that, and how do you feel about the way things stand now?
So the cyclical nature of it all is just, it's really disheartening, because throughout history there has been, injustice, there has been slavery, there has been mass murder, even today in 2020, the modern time, where people say, well, there's been a black man in office, but yet there are still black men being shot in the street like dogs. And the fact that people's grandparents, people's great grandparents were marching for it, and then those same people alive today in wheelchairs, they're barely even able to walk. They're still marching and fighting for the same cause. Why? When time and time again it has been proven that Black Lives Matter. There have been so many advances in the community, in society, technology, healthcare, all of it done by Black people. And it's still the fact that, nope, they don't matter. We are allowed to shoot them in the street if we want to. We are allowed to kneel on their neck. We are allowed to harass them. We are allowed to arrest them. We are allowed to kidnap them. We are allowed to traffic them and things like that. Why? What is it that it's just about brown skin that people are just like, we have to take advantage of them. We have to make sure that they feel like they're the lowest of the low. But then at the same time, you have kids bumping trap music up and down the street. You hear them playing the music in their homes. You hear them using the language, the dialect, the slang, literally trying to pretty much copycat. You know, they want to be a part of the culture but not understand it. You know, they want it to be cool. They want to feel cool. You think it's cool being afraid whenever you see flashing lights in your rearview mirror? That's not cool at all. Me personally, I haven't had like any real like bad experiences with police, but anytime I am driving my car and there's like an officer, let's say behind me on the highway, I switch lanes. Because I'm like, you're not about to drive behind me and make up some sort of excuse to stop me. We have to be very careful. We have to live our lives very, very carefully. And it's like, in the 60s and even before that, right? The code was leave the house looking your best, so that there is absolutely no reason for anybody to harass you. You're trying to be an upstanding citizen. Men and women who would go out in their best dress, right? Sunday best, looking for jobs would be lynched. They'd be beat up, spat on. And all of it for what? Just because, oh, they hate Black people and this, that, and the third. But you trust, right, back in slavery days, but you trust a Black woman to raise your children, to breastfeed your kids. Like that is such an intimate thing, and that is something that like I don't think people really understand that like a mother to baby or anybody who's like breastfeeding a child, you are imparting so much on them. You are giving them immunity. You are giving them love. You're nurturing them. You're giving them what they need to grow. A lot of people don't know that in a baby's saliva, if anything is wrong with them, it sends like signals, it sends whatever hormones and things like that into the mom, and then that changes the milk that's produced. Like something that is so intimate and so important. Like you would trust a Black woman, but you hate her so much, you know? Like, and the fact that it just keeps going in cycles and cycles, and they say history repeats itself, unfortunately. And then you just have to think, why is it that, you know, you have a new age of people, and yes, you know, new generations, they're getting better. They're like, yes, Black Lives Matter. This is something that's important because like their lives matter. They are people too. But then and then people are thinking, okay, we just need the older generations to die off, and then the newer generations are going to be better and things are going to get better. No, because those attitudes are taught. That mindset is taught. So if you teach a child hate like that, they're going to grow up hating somebody for absolutely no reason. And then thankfully you have people who, you know, continue schooling, they come to college and they get educated, they make friends outside of their demographic, and they're like, they're not as bad as I've been told my whole life, you know? So then the question is, not necessarily how do you change somebody's heart, because like you cannot change anybody. In my opinion, only God can change somebody, and God can only change that person with their permission. So how exactly do you, I guess in a sense, convince people that, hey, I matter, we bleed the same? If you were to strip me of my skin, strip me of my fat, strip me of my muscle, our bones are the same. The fundamental structures of our being, to the proteins, the atoms, it's all the same. So why is it that just the fact that I have brown skin, it's different? Meanwhile, everybody came from Africa.
It's true.
You know, and they just got separated on this globe, and then it's just this notion of, okay, I'm better. So, and then, oh my God, and then I took African American and African literature, I think was the class, history. I don't know. But that class really opened my eyes to the BS, to the lies. Because when people first started, writing about Africa, trying to explore it, they said it was a dark continent. They said savages lived there. There's nothing good over there. But you'll see that math was pretty much invented in Africa. The wealthiest civilizations were in Africa. Like, Africans taught the Spanish and the Europeans so much about life itself and about how to even bathe, how to get food, how to protect yourselves and things like that. Like, it was all taught. So I'm thinking, it was like, were we too kind? What was the initial reason for that hate? Was it jealousy at the fact that you thought you were the only ones on this planet? You see that people who are supposedly savages, they're living such glorious, wealthy lives that you just have to tear it down. So, like, is it jealousy? Like, where did the hate come from? And then why is it that it's being allowed to continue? And then that's where I think of the divine aspect of it, right? Bringing God back into it. Because Jesus himself was persecuted. They killed him. They hated his guts. So I'm just like, are we doing something right? It's like, are we doing something right? And that's the consequence. Like, what is it, and why is it such a cyclical nature? Why is it that 1 minute I can walk down the street and I'm fine, but the next day, like literally the next day, I'll be harassed for it? Why? And it's 2020. Why? And then with the current happenings, it's just really, really unfortunate that people are being killed and nobody's being held responsible. No matter how many marches there are, no matter how many shops get burnt down, no matter how many people are out there advocating, being articulate, everything that they want you to be, and it's still not enough. And it just looks like things won't change. So how do we do that? Do we get more Black officials elected into local government? Do we get them up in a higher power and things like that? And then you also have to worry about corruption with that, right? Because there are some Black people who they've made those advancements, they're in those positions of power, but they're not doing anything to help their fellow man. Why? The main question is just why? Why does all this happen? Why is it allowed to happen? Why is it that I know my worth, but as soon as somebody of a different demographic comes to me to question it or says the slightest thing, then I'm left to question it. Then my crown kind of slips, Why is that? What's your opinion on it?
You just said a lot.
I know I just said a whole lot, but
that was a lot of powerful stuff right there. I mean, just the way you illustrated the hypocrisy that exists in the fact that, I mean, slave masters trusted Black women to raise their children. Like, just your illustration of that is powerful, because there's at the core of racism is hypocrisy. And it really is an institution that stands on false legs. And even when you talk about just the cyclical nature of Black Lives Matter and how the world, it's like, I'm just trying to like riff on the powerful point you said, but you said Jesus was persecuted, like, and then you ask, are we doing something right? That even gets me thinking how you said why and how we talk about faith. It gets me thinking of what is supposed to happen and what isn't. Why is this happening? The honest to God answer is like nobody knows. God, I don't even know if God knows. The real kicker behind it is just always this sort of perpetual injustice. Why does there have to be any justice in the world at all? But in terms of Black Lives Matter specifically, like you said, there's so many forces at work. And if we could go back to the fact that we started in Africa, everybody started in Africa, like you said. Like you said, I took that same African American literature class, and literally, like, I learned some of the same information. That was when I learned more in detail about melanin and why our skin is darker, and sort of the contextual forces that paint the delineation that has led to modern day racism. And just even thinking about it in context, you're right. We astronomy, math, science, all those things were essentially started and further developed in Africa. Mansa Musa was one of the richest people ever. He was of African descent. And so it just gets me thinking, it's like that concept of when you're at the top, all you can do is fall kind of thing. Like you can either stay there or fall, but at some point you gotta fall. It gets me wondering at what point can we just all be at the top? Why does somebody have to fall? And even thinking about how sort of transcended time to slavery and then the civil rights movement, just you're right, like you have to question, were we being too nice? And that's a question that I feel like a lot of Black teenagers and kids and people developing today have to ask, because we have a level of aggression that's present that we have to address and that we have to keep in check because of the history of how slavery and racism affected our people. So every day we walk outside, we have a level of fear and anxiety and angst and aggression that we have to check and that we have to essentially suppress in order to go on about our day.
Yeah.
And so going back to melanin, it's like at some point forces were at work that we couldn't control, that we grasped and took to forces that we could control, or concepts that we could control: greed, violence. At some point, somebody, Christopher Columbus, for example, took that concept from forces that we couldn't control and created his own reality. And it really is sad to think that human nature, in our very nature, we are designed to disagree and to bend ourselves. And then I'm sorry, my mom is just saying something in the chat, but
oh yes, some good points. Yeah.
I mean, at the core of it, it's just upsetting that our human nature, we're designed to set us back. So, like you were saying, why does this happen? It's because we have to keep our foot on the pedal. Like this is something that we in diversity in organization. If you don't keep your foot on the pedal, there's mostly white people in America. So inevitably, if you don't keep an emphasis on diversity and trying to bring a diverse group into organization, there's going to be mostly white people there, because that's a problem that consistently be addressed. And the second we let our foot up, the second that we put systems in place that allow us to keep our foot off the pedal, whether that's keeping Black people away from the polls, or keeping Black people out of political offices, then we go right back to the things that we did wrong. And so I guess overall, all of these forces, the fact that we started in Africa, the fact that we have this aggression that's sort of subtle, the fact that we have a race that literally hates us for no reason, the fact that we have the concept of even a minority, that wasn't supposed to happen. The world was just supposed to play out the way it happened. The fact that white people are the majority by far in America, that's a man-made concept. That wasn't. I don't know if the world would have played out like that anyway. But Native Americans were here first. So
Yeah.
in essence, that's what's creating the cycle, like man-made forces. And I don't think anybody should let it tell you different. Like racism is it started with man. God did not God did not implant
No,
racism in the world. Like
absolutely. Because, and then something that somebody in my family told me this, they were like, so, the origin of man, we were made of dirt and then God breathed life into us, right? So somebody was like, nah, dirt is brown. I was like, yo, dirt is
it's
brown.
deep.
I was like, that really threw me for a loop. I was like, dirt is brown. Like at the end of the day, like we're all supposed to be the same. We're all made in his image. We are all, there's like a certain level of, what's expected of us. And because we've also been given choice, that is something that was also the downfall of man, right? And then Eve, when I die and go to heaven, I gotta talk to her. I gotta. I'll be like, was the fruit good? I hope that was the best bite of anything you ever took in your whole life, girl. Because like the whole of mankind was like doomed from the start, and that also just blows my mind. That it really blows my mind. And then like to go completely off topic, like I want to know like how many trials God went through,
Oh,
because we hear about Adam and Eve, those are the origins, but it's like, and then how people are like, oh, there are different versions of the Bible and this and this and that. Like, I want to know how many trials of people there really were. Like if they're, and like if there are different realities, and like maybe like there's several earths and things like that. This is totally off topic, but like just to be like, what could have happened, because I know that he knows everything. He is everywhere. So there are different realities that he has definitely seen play out.
what if there were other things before the Big Bang that led to our existence?
Like, there's so many questions, and
Oh shoot, no, I think your sound went out. But we good, we good.
okay, did you hear? Should I repeat that?
Not that. Oh, repeat. Yeah, repeat that part.
Okay, I think, what did I say? There are just like so many questions, and I hope that he has all the answers. He's all knowing. I truly believe that. But I feel like there are some things that, of course, are out of his control, because, like, again, going biblically, the earth is not necessarily his domain. Like, he needs permission from us to do certain things to make it good. So is it, like with the whole cycles thing, is it the fact that people aren't praying enough? Is it the fact that there's not enough faith? Is it the fact that, of course, the whole choice thing, people making wrong choices? But it's like, if we have a sinful nature, then of course it's going the way it's
It's
going.
inevitable.
It's inevitable. And with the way your mom, the comment that she made, she said, the recent one, no one has to fall, but nature demonstrates that the carnal man will want control and power. Boom. Control, power, and I think you said it earlier, ego, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just really crazy, because even now, like, I sit on my bed and I'm just like, yo, like, why are people so mean?
Exactly.
Like, why are people so evil? Like, it really, I feel like it takes more effort and more energy to be mean and to be evil than to just kind of live your life, vibe out, and just do what you can as a person to make the world a better place.
I even thought about that. I was like, in every racist, like, they have to know that at some level they're doing something wrong, and I think that leads to some sort of dissonance mentally, and then some sort of physical pain. When I was watching a KKK documentary, just to see why people join, I could just see that they seem like such people, like on a very surface level. And so I was like, what? Why did you diffuse there? What is the sort of barrier that you had to go through? What did you use when you went through that barrier? So it just got me thinking as to, I think there's some level of neglect that has to happen for them to diffuse into the wrong side. And I think that in that process, they lose that sort of physical pain or that sort of dissonance that's present in order to keep doing wrong. Because at some level, you have to know that everybody is equal. I mean, we've said it several times in U.S. history. The Constitution, all men are created equal. How can you say that and not have any among like slavery was? I think that like we were saying, like it's inevitable that people will. I think it was also inevitable that slavery would end. It's a system that stands on false legs, and it took a lot of fighting for it to end. I'm not trying to downplay what our ancestors have to do, but at the same time, these sort of institutions were built on very, very foundations. And so the dissonance that has to be present within our racist body, I have to wonder, like, doesn't it hurt? Like, does it ever feel like does it ever make you tired or sore or anything? Because I would think that has to lead to some sort of, in the same way that stress, long-term stress can lead to heart attacks and things like that, I would think that long-term evil has to lead to some sort of physical repercussion will ultimately make it's just not worth it, and it's not right.
Yeah, there are definitely some repercussions that, that we don't see that they definitely feel, because I feel like it'll probably be on some like poetic stuff where it's like on their deathbed, they reflect on life and they're like, I did this all wrong. Because at the end of the day, like we know, everybody knows right from wrong. We all do. But then another question too is that, is the hate so blinding that like it's still just like, on the opposite end, still maybe on their deathbed, they're just like, I lived my life perfectly. I did everything I was supposed to. I did this, that, and the third, and I I really don't even know.
Like, it's like, oh, I'm a good person. I donated to certain causes throughout my life. I built houses, and then there's like that undertow of like, oh, but I hate all minorities. Like, I guess you're saying like that kind of thing. Like at some point they just completely ignore it. Like, forgot.
Yeah. And I think your mom is dropping gems.
Dropping bombs.
Racism defying top behavior means you alienate yourself from family and friends. Yes, absolutely. And I feel like for a lot of people, maybe they continue it out of that fear of being alienated, out of that fear of like feeling alone and things like that. Because I've read some things on social media where it's like somebody will date outside of their race, and then like their ex will hit them up and be like, you're embarrassing me, you're embarrassing the family. Their family stops talking to them, so they're now alone and alienated from their family and friends and things like that. And it's just like, that's really wild to me, just because I was not raised to hate. I was raised to, even if I have a shirt on my back, I'm giving you half, so you pick the front or the back and we can split this shirt. So it's just really mind-blowing to me that people are raised with that mindset, and it's just so unfortunate because, like, in my opinion, there is, not my opinion, in the book of facts, okay, there is so much love within our community that the whole world needs to experience. There is definitely a notion of looking out for one another that other communities and other demographics just do not have. So that's another thing that also keeps us pushing and keeps us, on the up, because at the end of the day, we need that.
It's true. Like there's
We need to.
some countries in Africa that are very low by socioeconomic rankings globally, but they're, I mean, and we only see pictures of like malnutrition and things like that. But I was just reading about some places like in Sierra Leone in my public health classes, and they were just talking about how they have parades and they have music. I mean, some, even when their basic necessities are not certain, they found a way to celebrate, which I think is indicative of the fact that we do have love that needs to be shared. It's always, even when we don't have it all, we still got love for one another that was propel forward and celebrate ourselves.
Yeah, it's really nice. I don't know if you know this, but I'm Ghanaian, so I can totally speak on the fact of like making the most out of essentially nothing. I recently went to Ghana last Christmas, and like it's definitely a different world. You know, you don't you don't have all the things that they tell you that you need here. You know, all the luxuries. You know, there's not necessarily running hot water everywhere, but first off, that's because it's very hot. I for one am not gonna take a hot shower when it is about 100 degrees outside. The AC's barely blowing, I've been sweating all night. I'm personally not in the mood for any type of hot shower. But it's like you see people and barely making ends meet. And the great thing too is that food is cheap. So at the end of the day, most of the time people can get food in their belly and stuff, but you'll see them dancing in the street, having a great time. Like everybody's playing music, everybody's talking. And it's just that I think camaraderie, is that the right word for it? Is just, that love between each other and the respect of, okay, you're a person, I'm a person, we're in this together. Let's make the most of whatever this is. Yeah.
It's true. And so to go back to, I guess the point about Black Lives Matter, it's really upsetting that this sort of thing continues. I mean, it's really upsetting. Like I said, one of the most depressing about, or one of the most depressing concepts that can bring anybody down is injustice. Like it's like
Yeah.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. found the faith to get up every day and fight and fight and fight and lead marches
Yeah.
and get sent to jail and beaten. And so many people during the civil rights movement went through the exact same thing, all united by this one cause to make their lives better for their children and to end the evils that were prevalent in their sort of time and are still prevalent today. And so it's really just disgusting and downright depressing that we're still dealing with this today, even though none of us asked for this. You and I did not ask for this. We're just trying to express ourselves and live our lives. And we happen to be in a time where this is still a thing. Not to say that, not to downplay the importance of it, but it's still definitely like a thing. And nobody asked for it today. And so, in terms of Black Lives Matter today, protests that happened over the summer, just to revisit it because I was just wanting to talk about this with somebody. It's really depressing that I had to think about why I didn't post about it at first. Like at first, I just didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to post on Instagram or anything. But I had this realization that, look, if I don't post about this, I'm siding with the oppressors. I'm siding with the people on the wrong side of history. And so I had to think, well, nobody else asked for this. And they're out there fighting for their lives on the streets, trying to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen. So I have to do something as well. And so it's just upsetting that injustice continues to force us to hit that fight or flight response. So like if I don't do something now, my kids might still have it bad. And my ancestors fought for us to get to this point. So I got to do something to keep things going. It's just upsetting that all the contextual forces have led us to have no choice. It has led everybody to feel like they have no choice. Racist, like my mom was saying, that feel like they'll alienate themselves from friends and family if they're not racist.
Yeah.
It's forced them to have no choice. It's forced the black male to join a gang because they want to feel comfortable that they're not getting anywhere else, and then they're getting into negative behaviors. Of course, I got homeboys back home that have done some really, really bad stuff, and I know that they're good people. But I can see all these contextual forces that are leading them to feel like you don't have a choice. And when you get into that fight or flight mode, you might make a really bad decision. All of a sudden, it looks a lot worse because of the media and the contextual forces that are prevalent in America, intersectionality, like if you're black, but also if you're a black woman, you have it worse. All of these things are just at play. And at the end of the day, everybody feels like they don't have a choice, which is really upsetting that we had to get back to that point where people are rioting again. I remember like sitting at my grandma's house watching Trayvon Martin unfold, watching that case unfold, just for hours and hours and hours. I was glued to the TV. I didn't realize why until recently. It's that I literally felt like I didn't have a choice. Like I felt the external forces pulling me, like I had to watch, which is upsetting that all these concepts and these racism standing on false legs and all these ideologies are still clashing and making everybody hit that fight or flight button. And it's upsetting that injustice is still prevalent, but I do, like I said, like we were talking about faith, that we have to have faith that we're being crafted and molded into something that will propel our civilization forward and that will make our lives better, and that will ultimately help us and maybe even help God. Like maybe we're just working with God going through this. Maybe it'll help us to help God continue to find a way to let his light through to us and also to shine the light back and just make the world a more beautiful in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very well said.
But okay, I know you gotta go soon. I don't want to take up so much of your time.
No, you're good. I want to actually bounce off that the feeling of obligation. So when they set up a march here, and I was talking to my mom about it, and this is like the height of COVID, or was a couple months ago. So I'm talking to my mom. I'm like, Mom, like I have to go out there. She's like, Nana, like COVID and blah blah blah. I'm like, Mom, this is so much bigger than COVID. I understand that it's a pandemic, but this is so much bigger than COVID. This is so much bigger than me. This is so much bigger than everything. And I understand that you're worried. I understand that, things can happen. Things have happened in other cities, but this is something that I absolutely need to do at this point in time, or else what is the point of me? I have to go out there and feel like I am one with the people. I have to go out there and be like, you guys are not alone. There are people. We are one in the community. We can come together and we can be peaceful. We can do this right. We can do everything. So, we're marching, we're chanting, everything's going great. And then you see a couple people bust up some windows, you see them bust up some cars. And it's just like those few people where it's just like, okay, like get them out of here. Because we're not here for the violence, we're not here for any of that. So boom, get them out of there. And then literally like at the blink of an eye, there was National Guard, they were throwing tear gas and things like that. So watching that and things like that, it was really scary because I know that it could have gotten so much worse.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I would have been out there all day. I don't care how much gas would have been thrown out, anything, because for me, being out there was so important. And yes, I felt obligated to do it because why not? These people are marching essentially for me,
Oh yeah.
So and then the fact that we still have to be out there protesting is just, amidst a pandemic, it was mind-boggling, but it was so amazing because you could feel the energy out there, and you could feel like the yearning for change. You could feel how, like, you could feel the hurt, you could feel the hope, you could just feel everything that everybody was feeling. And it was honestly a great experience, and I'm really glad I did not listen to my mom. And I'm glad that I went out there, and I'm glad that there was like a stirring up in me that was like, Nana, you have to go out there and do that. And I wish it wasn't like oh my God, like you have to go do that. But like, I wish it was something where it's like lighthearted and things like that. Although, our community, we will make anything lighthearted if we can. So there was music out there, people were talking and things like that. It was really great. And then like you said, watching all the cases and the videos and stuff, I definitely also feel obligated to watch every single video that comes across my feed, even if it says, content warning, anything. I'm like, I have to see it. And it's like, at the same time, like, is it desensitizing me, or is it making me more aware? Is it making me more angry? Because I definitely felt a lot of anger. I definitely felt that, like, not to hate on anybody, but it was to the point where I was like, if I even saw like a white person walk down the street and they're, living their life, laughing, smiling, I was just like, there is nothing to be smiling about. Even me, like, having a good time, going out, hanging out with friends, or doing something that makes me happy, I felt guilty just because of everything that was happening in the world. So it's just like, what do you do with that mix of emotions where you feel obligated to do something and then you feel guilty for doing certain things? And it's like, also the feeling of like, there's only so much I can do. What do you do with all that?
It's true. I felt that same guilt. I was like, I, I even got mad at people because I was wondering how anybody could be happy about anything during that time. Like, I was literally like, it's enveloping. It really consumes me because it's that important. But that's the thing, is it's like, it's an urgent cause. It's something that's worth fighting for. It's something that you have to keep fighting for, but it will consume you because the whole cause stems from injustice and evil. And in a sense, even when we're fighting against it, it's working. Like, it worked because it made us have to fight against it. And I guess with that mix of emotions, it just makes you realize how silly it is that we didn't ask for that. We have nothing to do with. We don't want to be racist at all. Yet it pulled us in to have something to do with it just because of the way we look, or just because of where we live, or so. It's just very, like you said, it all leads back to the importance of fighting against this cause, because we really don't have a choice in some instances. But we also have to remember, and I guess that goes back to mental health. Like, we also have to remember that we have to love ourselves before we can love others. So I think we always have to acknowledge why we're out there. Like, you can protest, but like, you also have to remember that at a baseline level, you have to love humans in order to disagree with them. And yeah, I guess.
Nice.
But yeah,
That was nice.
I guess.
Well,
that even hit on my next point, which was institutions and individualism. We just talked about that. So I guess. Okay, let's end off on kind of a positive note.
I like that.
So in terms of building the sort of resources that you can fall back on when you are affected, when your mental health is negatively affected, what sorts of things do you find yourself building in terms of your support network, or even music? What sorts of want to get through things affect your mental health negatively?
So, how do I get through things that affect my mental health negatively, right? Like I said earlier, I listen to some gospel music. I pray. If I'm feeling like I'm in a funk, I definitely usually don't want to be around people or anything. So I usually just come into my room, either listen to gospel music, or like I have like a little sad playlist. Maybe I'll play that or something. Or I just lie there. In certain instances, like I'll put on like a sad movie or something, and kind of this sounds really sad, but kind of like force myself to cry, just to get that release, because it's not like, oh, like it wouldn't be like bad enough for me to just sit there and cry. I'd have to have some sort of outlet, either that or like write a song. So there was like the last song that I performed on Battle of the Bands was a new one that I wrote this year, and that was definitely in a time of, you know, me being in a funk. And the premise of the song is that like something's missing, you know, like I'm listening to my heartbeat, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to do something about it, but I feel like I can't really do anything about it. I'm, you know, around family. I don't want anybody and my friends. I don't want anybody to see that I'm in any sort of funk. And I just feel like, something's missing. Something's not right. So that was the premise for that song. And definitely writing and listen to certain beats. If I'm up to it, definitely hang out with friends, but like nothing too crazy. Just like maybe we'll sit and watch a movie or like talk about how we're feeling about the current times. Definitely talk to my family, my mom, my siblings. They really know how to cheer me up, and they don't do anything at all, you know. They just pick up the phone and I feel 10 times better. And just acknowledge the fact that I am not feeling okay, acknowledging the fact that I am in a funk, and being like, okay, Nana, what is causing this feeling? Why is it that you feel this way? So a lot of the times, maybe sometimes I'll stand in my mirror. I have like this huge mirror in my room. So like I'll stand there and I'll look at myself and I'll be like, what is wrong? What is wrong? Why are you feeling this way? And then I'll break down everything in my head and I'll be like, okay, this caused this feeling, this caused that feeling. It's not always that easy. And sometimes you just need to cry it out and things like that. And then one thing that really made me realize that like, okay, I probably have a whole lot bottled up inside is when Chadwick died.
Oh yeah.
Like, for some reason, I took that so hard. And it's not even like I was a super fan, you know, it wasn't even like I was following his every move on social media, but I remember the night so vividly. We were in the living room. We were having a great time. We were like dancing around. We had like lights going and things like that. And then a friend FaceTimed one of my roommates, and they were like, Chadwick died. And we were all like, stop playing. We are like, no, no, no. As soon as we open our phone, every news outlet, every source, everything was like, you know, Chadwick Boseman has died. And I was just like, oh my God. So I was sitting out there and everybody, you know, was calling their loved ones, saying, you know, just expressing their love for them, expressing the fact that, you know, I'm so glad you're alive. I'm so glad I'm alive and things like that. And then like I was sitting there and like, you know, I was just sitting there and I was just crying. And I was like, why is this hitting me so hard? And then I went to my bathroom and I just like completely broke down. And I was just like, it was to the point where in my head, I was like, you know, nothing matters. Like, we're all here where we think this is important. We think that's important. And like, none of the surface level things matter. Like, none of that stuff really matters, because before he died, there were so many people who were cracking jokes and saying that, oh, he was on drugs and this and this and that. But like, that really made me realize that like, you really never know what people have going on in their lives. You never know when somebody's day is going to be their last. You never know when that's the last time you're going to say hey to somebody, the last time you're going to say I love you, the last time you're going to say, you know, see you later. You just never really know. So I think another thing that helps me kind of get out of a funk is just like, at the end of the day, I don't know if I'll even wake up tomorrow. So every day, not, yes, you know, live it like it's my last, but at the same time, just live every day with purpose. Live every day where if I were to go tomorrow, I'd be like, you know what? I'm happy with how my last day on earth was. I am okay with how that went. Even if I was sad about it, I processed those emotions. I worked through it. I called all my loved ones. Everybody knows that I love them. You know, I'm good. So I think that's a big part also, not being too, I guess, what's the right word? Not being too consumed by those surface level things that don't matter, not being too consumed by other people's opinions about you and their critiques and things like that. And just knowing that, bringing religion back into it, knowing that in God's eyes, yes, I'm imperfect, but I'm everything that He needs me to be. So just remembering, that I am a queen, remembering that I am the bomb.com, remembering that there is always somebody who's rooting for me, whether it be family, friends, God Himself, just knowing that there is so much in me that I should love. There is so much in me that I should cherish. There's so much in me that I shouldn't take for granted. And that goes for the people around me as well. There's so much life to live and there's so much to be happy about that I can't let myself spend too much time in the dumps, or else I'm gonna forget who I am. I'm gonna forget that there's a crown that's been placed on my head. I'm gonna forget that I am the light. I'm the light of the world. I'm the salt of the earth. I am just amazing, and that goes for everybody.
That's powerful. That's beautiful. It's true. Like, we do all have, I mean, the very, the fact that we exist, I think, is just a testament to that. Like, so many things could have happened that would have led to us not being like as a civilization. So I think you're so right, so on point with everything you said, because we have to continue to realize how important it is that we have the opportunity to do anything. The fact that we have hands, I mean, even for people that don't, the fact that they have a conscience, and obviously there's exceptions where people are going through things where, some people just have really bad diseases that renders them incapable of living a full life. But I think just and not to downplay that at all, but at the very baseline level, I think it's just so important for us to sit down and think about how beautiful it is that we're all here. Just that. And like you were saying, when Chadwick died, I did feel the same way. I felt that it always brought me back to asking questions as to, like, why did this happen? He seemed like such a great guy. And like you were saying, how the media was just flooding his timelines. I think just the injustice of it all, like, it didn't appear that, and obviously nobody deserves, I wouldn't wish that on the worst enemy. Like, it just sucks because you get the feeling that he did everything right with the beautiful art that he put into the world. Even when I watched his interviews, just the concern that he had for others, it appeared that he did every single thing right, and then that still happened. He didn't get to live his whole life, so I think that's really tugged at people's heartstrings. But I think the thing to realize with that is how we were going back to faith, this sort of concept of the divine fate of the world is really, really, really difficult to lean into sometimes. And I think the thing with me with trying to keep faith is that I have to run into that fact head on. Sometimes it seems like the divine fate of the world is just not okay. Like, I'm just not okay with the way God is out. Like how children in my family have passed away. It sucks because I keep going back to this, but the injustice of it, at the core of everything that pulls at our heartstrings, I think, is some level of injustice. This wasn't, quote unquote, supposed to happen. And so, what I've tried to do to sort of get past it, to just put everything open. Journaling has really, just to dump everything out there, bring everything to fruition in some way, write it down, manifest that in some way so that you can look at it and really examine things without the sort of dissonance that you experience internally. Because once it's external, there's no more internal dissonance. It's sitting right in front of you. You have to address it as it has manifested as a piece of whatever. like if it's a journal, if you've written down your feelings, you have to acknowledge them for what they are, without any other conflating emotions or scenes in your head or experiences. It is what it is. So I think that's why journaling has helped me. And like, to be honest, a lot of other like big historical figures seem to have been passing away in 2020 as well. I know it's becoming like a thing, like 2020 was the worst year ever, that kind of thing. But I think it really is indicative of the fact that this is just one of those trying years. And this is kind of what I want to talk about with this, is that it's important to just leave this all on the table. Like, I love that you talk about the current like events with your. That makes me so happy to hear, because a lot of people bottle this stuff in, especially in a time like now during this pandemic. And it just sucks because you can make a hasty decision in a really negative mindset. Your mind is always trying to get back to a state of neutrality, not too happy, not too sad. And so that force is always at work, but it's really difficult when there's sort of consistent injustice that's going on, when you're seeing a lot of it on your timeline. And which is why I also think that sometimes you just gotta step away from social media, because it's a really skewed world. And I think with the gratitude of being alive, you always have to find a way to get back to some level of fulfillment. I think that's the thing that guides me wherever I go. Like, whatever I do, I will always try to get to a fullness, a full, fulfilling feeling. That's a lot of F's. But music, or talking to my mom, or doing this interview with you, and you saying really beautiful things, just whatever, just acknowledging that everything we go through, everything that we take, we should do our best to get that full feeling of fulfillment, even when it seems like the world is falling apart. Because at the end of the day, like you said, for us, because we're religious, we believe that it's inevitable that we will go through this. And so you have to acknowledge that and be prepared for it. You have to understand that even in the bad times, you'll still be fulfilled. Even when it seems like nothing is going right, you can still get back to the feeling of fulfillment. And I guess at the end of the day, my gratitude for even having that sense of fulfillment, the gratitude that I have, that even though my little 8-year-old cousin were with us, in some way, I have to have faith that God had a greater plan, and that whatever fulfillment I have gained since then has been leading me to some ultimate destination, where if I keep going back to the feeling of fulfillment in a positive way and get back to the roots of what makes me me, that when I look back, when I'm like 80 or 90 years old, I can at least say I accepted the world for all its flaws as a beautiful conglomeration of people, experiences, art, culture, whatever. All this is coming back to give us a playing field for our life to take place on. And at least I try to look at the world for the beautiful entity that it really is, when you strip everything back. Crap, that was a lot.
Nice.
Saying, but yeah, that's awesome to hear you say that, though. I mean, like, and to get back to actually like the baseline of what I was saying, like journaling, talking to family. I think that we're doing the right things. Like I said, I love that you talk with your family and that you stay connected with people, because I think that's really important in a time like now. And just trying to stay active and acknowledge the fact that you will have down days, but um, as someone once said to me, you got to have that toolbox ready in your darkest moment. Reach into that toolbox. Maybe it's a movie that you turn on. I've gotten a lot into movies this year. Like, and even when you talk about the insignificance of the little things day to day, when I watched Saving Private Ryan, that big movie starring Tom Hanks and stuff, boy, like everything seemed less significant when I watched that movie, because I was just thinking, like, I could not imagine going through World War II and all the chaos that was going on, like, on a daily basis. So even when you talked about the insignificance of those things, I always go back to that sort of concept of beautiful world, trying to love everybody at a baseline level, because at the end of the day, there are overarching themes that are present in our lives that they can become cliche if we let them, like love and happiness. but we have to keep going back to the purity of those ideologies. Happiness is not necessarily something that you will get to and then that's it. You can live the rest of your life as an ongoing thing. And if you don't revisit the things that do make you happy and acknowledge that certain things do make you happy, then you can get away from happiness as a whole. And so you have to keep your foot on the pedal. You got to keep trying to be positive. It will get tough, as we are seeing this year.
Yeah.
I just think it's really beautiful that we at least have the opportunity to acknowledge the world for its beauty and also to let our light shine as the beautiful beings that we are. Okay, I think that's it. I'm done. But yeah, cool. Okay, I know. I think that's a great note to end off on. If you're okay with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's fine. This was really awesome.
This was awesome. Can we talk about music really fast?
Yeah.
I almost forgot. But yeah. So what new stuff?
Wait, hold on real quick. There's like a weird echo, so I'm gonna X out of this and then after that.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Cool. Hey,
Okay.
cool.
Back in business.
But yeah. Okay. Just really briefly, because I know. Just thank you for being on this long, first of all. But really briefly, I just want to see what music you're working on. Yeah.
What music I'm working on?
Mm-hmm.
So I have this song that I'm trying to, I guess, finish recording. It's more of like an Afro beats. So I'm trying to get that. The song is called Medase, which means thank you. But it's like the attitude of the song is like thanks, but like leave me alone. So kind of that, kind of like a fun song that's like, I'm popping this and that. And then there's another song that I just thought of the hook, and it's I want the song to be about sometimes how, like, you don't feel good enough, but at the end of the day, just reminding yourself that despite what I may think in this moment, despite what maybe so and so said to me the other day, I am good enough. I know that I'm good enough, and it's okay that, I feel this way momentarily, but I'm going to work through it. Apart from those two projects, I'm really just trying to find my sound. And it's like, I don't necessarily want to be like categorized into like sad girl music, but at the same time, it's just like, if that is kind of what's coming up, I'm not really gonna fight it. And then trying to figure out like, oh, maybe what genre I fit into, because people are like, it's kind of like an R&B soul kind of thing. But like somebody was like, yeah, I'm getting kind of folky vibes. So I'm just like, I don't know what genre it is necessarily. And I'm also trying to learn how to produce my own music, and that's a little hard with the mixing and mastering. It's a bit difficult getting into making my own beats, saving up money for, better equipment, speakers, microphone, all that.
Can I ask a question real fast?
Yeah.
Would you call yourself a Christian rapper, or are you just a kind of an artist all around rap? Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I think all around rap. Because apart from what I have another song called Blessed, and I should have put that out, but I will put that out. But I feel like eventually I would like to end up as a Christian rapper, just because of course we have a lot of great rappers like Andy, but I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, Mineo, and Lecrae, and other people like that. But I feel like my sound is a bit different than theirs. And at the end of the day, I would like to take an avenue that won't necessarily, lead me astray.
Oh yeah.
If like a lot of people start listening to it, let's say like fame comes, like I would like an avenue that would kind of hold me accountable, that I'd have to hold myself accountable and things like that for too. So in the long run, I would like to just do Christian rap and Christian music, but at the same time, I feel like it's important not to just box myself into that category and have all my music be clean, be meaningful, and in one way or another glorify God in the same aspect, you know? So, yeah.
Lit. What's your artist? And also, where can people find you?
My artist name, you know, I go by Naneezy. Go by Naneezy, and I can be found on all platforms. I'm because I use DistroKid to upload my music, so you know that puts it on everything from Spotify, Apple Music, Napster, anything, everywhere that has music. I'm pretty sure like I've got the song is even on like TikTok and things like that because you know DistroKid is that. I like it. I like it. So yeah, check me out, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever
Lit.
wherever music is played. I guess you can find it.
I can, because I'm gonna upload this to YouTube and I'm gonna link it to. I gotta get those links from you, and then it'll be cool.
Oh,
Lit. Cool.
lit. Okay.
And then,
So what about your music?
oh, that's a good question. Well, I got a new song coming out on Friday called Product Part 2.
Nice.
It's essentially about the sort of kind of in a vein of what we've been talking about, the contextual forces of what lead people to do negative things. It's a short little like a single, and it's probably one of the more aggressive songs I've ever done.
Okay.
And I don't, like you said, I don't want to be categorized into sad boy music, but a lot of my songs are just kind of coming out very bitter right now, and I guess I'm just gonna have to let things play out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just hope that something comes like better out of it. Something better.
Definitely.
Yeah, but yeah.
That's what I like to hear that.
Cool. And then all right, I guess is that everything? Did you have anything else?
Whoops. No, I don't think so. Just an overall thank you for setting this up. Thank you for reaching out to me. This is really dope. If you want to do this again, I'm totally down.
Let's go. This was really dope. I knew this was gonna be great because our previous interview, but this was like really insane. And I thank you for everything that you said as well.
Of course, and thank you.
Cool. All right. I'll talk to you later.